kind of a long week, but went by quick enough, I guess. And then all of a sudden it's the 19th. It's crazy. See, the problem is as you get older and older, a week becomes a smaller and smaller percentage of your life, and so they always seem shorter. That's what happens. So time seems to fly by when you're older, whereas when you're a kid, you know, first of all, you only really start to perceive of things when you're about 4 or 5 years old. So by the time you're 10, a year is a tenth of your life. Or it's more, I'm sorry, it's not a tenth of your life. A year is 20% of your life. It seems like an incredible amount of time, a year. And even a week is scoring in there. A week is 1/50th of 10%, so 0.5%. So a week is like 0.5% of your life. Now, when you're 60, you got 55 years of conscious experience, and a year is now only 2% of your entire life. That's a crazy difference. That means literally 10 times. So you're compared to a 10-year-old, your time is going 10 times faster for you. A year goes by 10 times faster for you because it's only just a small sliver of your life, whereas to a 10-year-old, it's 20% of their conscious existence. And that's why they say, "Are we there yet?" over and over again, because they can't believe how long things take. Oh, it's amazing. I think it's really amazing. My kids grow. Oh my God, my kids are both 20s now. Oh, that's crazy. Crazy how late I waited to have kids in the first place. But meanwhile, I'm getting old and they're just starting. There must be a Jim Croce song for that, right? And then he died. So all this insightful stuff he sang about. Anywho, where are we? The stock market. It's kind of flattish. What else is happening in the world? Let's see. Seeking Alpha says, dun, dun, dun. Nasdaq gain is Nasdaq, that's mean Dow gain as earnings season heats up. That's interesting, as they're no longer really gaining. Apple gains is said to have built ChatGPT style bot firm. So if you just mention AI, you boost. That's the new rules now. Just kind of like .com. So how much boost does a $3 trillion company get from saying AI? No, not much, just 0.5 point. You should come up with some kind of rule of thumb as what AI is worth to people. Electric vehicles, pharmaceuticals, Tesla earnings, tellurium, I don't even know what to do for natural gas. Rio Tinto warns of China's lackluster economy. Oops. See, that's it's gone now. Oh, there it is. That's the kind of news that makes me perk up, because I'm like, okay, Rio Tinto, big copper company, warns of China's lackluster economy weighing on metals demand. So it doesn't just affect them. This is what I call market moving news, right? Because it doesn't just affect them. It affects the metal sector. It affects many sectors when you start thinking of China and what slow demand in China means to trade and so on and so forth. Oh, that's what I should have talked about this morning. See, had I been awake this morning in time, we would have talked about China Evergrande. So let's have a conversation about that now. Now, see, it's not a public company here, so I wonder if it's going to get mentioned. Evergrande. China Evergrande quote. Well, I didn't know that they had a thing. How sad that must look. Let's see, wait, max amount of time. No. Yeah. So 10 years, 5 years. All right, I guess that catches the decline. So basically, this is an ADR, of course. It's at, wow. Well, you kind of have to put this fall into proportion, because it went from 338. So went from 3.38 to 0.0004. This is a completely and utterly worthless stock, and at this price, I still don't recommend it. This thing is a disaster. They've lost $88 billion that they're showing so far. That's what I wanted to do, was find the news on them. Not, we're certainly not picking the company. Oh no, that wasn't right. News. Here you go. Working capital, Evergrande pursue liabilities. Wow, this is so not up to date. How is there not more reporting on this? You have no free articles left. Screw you, Seeking Alpha. I don't write for them anymore officially, and so they've taken away all of the memberships they had that I used to have, and I refuse to pay for it because I used to get it all for free. I'm like, honestly, your analysis is not that good. Anyway, I bet we can do this. Open an incognito window, and now I don't have a limit. Navigate. Oh, maybe I do. Look at this. Create a free account. Oh no, they're blocking everything. Bastards. All right, we can find other sources of news. I just, out of principle, I just will not give them money. They're such bastards. All I did for them over the years, and they cut me off because I stopped writing for them. And I stopped writing for them because they don't reward you for writing for them, and they don't even let you promote your site. That's what was the last straw for me. They won't even let me mention PhilStockWorld. I can't even mention PhilStockWorld because it's a competing site to them. And I'm like, screw you. I've helped build your freaking site. So we're done. Oh, what was I going to say? Okay, so Google knows what I'm talking about. Okay, look at these titles. Evergrande reports $81 billion in losses. Debt is up to $340 billion. Now, how is that going to play out? What is the point of having plans? Wow, this is another obnoxious thing. There it goes. China Evergrande reports debt rose to $340 billion with meetings with creditors. China Evergrande property developers reported debts rose further to $340 billion at the end of the last year. Who is lending them money? Now, I discussed Evergrande from like 3 years ago. I've always pointed out that they were like the big warning signal for the market because it's a massive property developer in China that is just, it's a sign, just like in 2008, a couple of, builders and lenders went bust, and that was a sign that something was wrong. This is not unique to them. They're just the biggest example of it. But they built buildings that were in excess of what the market was able to fill at prices that the market was not able to carry. And they kept borrowing and building and borrowing and building because the people lending them money were under the impression that prices would always go up and demand would always go up. And that's never the case. It's never the case. No matter how big something is growing, no matter how big it's going to be in the future, there are always going to be pullbacks. It's just a natural cycle of things. And that goes for AI, and that goes for .com, and that goes and .com. Again, we had this .com boom, and valuations were insane. In fact, that in the Morning Post, I was talking about like I think we were like almost 50x, 45x on the S&P 500. Just any company that said they were doing .com would get rewarded the way anybody says they're doing AI gets rewarded right now. And the investors speculate that this will do this and that, and it did. .com, obviously, the whole world is .com now. If you're not on the internet, you're not a company. So yeah, they were right, but there was a 20-something year in between of really growing into its own and becoming a thing. You know, it's and of course 90% of those companies that made all these promises in .com were weeded out. And so the survivors, yeah, it's a fantastic thing. The internet is fantastic. It's useful. Companies like Amazon are survivors, and they've become huge. Google, obviously, huge. Microsoft adapted and moved to the .com environment, and now you buy Office on the web. You don't even own Office physically anymore. You just rent it on the web, and they update it constantly. And now they're adding AI to it, and Microsoft got a huge boost because they're adding AI to Office. But that makes sense, because you're paying $30 a month for the additional AI abilities in Office. That's integration with something that we use all the time. We're not going to stop using Office, and a certain percentage of people, a very high percentage of people, are going to add the AI capabilities to Office, especially if they make it actually useful. Like, you can easily design PowerPoints and easily work on Excel spreadsheets by just telling it what you want to do. That'll be kind of cool, right? It'll help you write your whatever you're writing on Word. It'll help you write it and correct it and do better than what their current assistant does. That's all great stuff. That's worth $30 a month, and maybe it'll be $20 a month or $15 a month eventually. Still added revenues for Microsoft. Lots and lots of added revenues to a base. So that makes perfect sense for them. But Microsoft is an adaptive company. They see a trend coming and they get right on top of it. When cloud came along, there were other people ahead of Microsoft, but Microsoft said, yes, cloud looks like a good thing. Let's do that. You know, they're very good at that. I was explaining to Jackie about Microsoft, actually. I was telling her about how, you know, Bill Gates originally went to IBM and said, I want to sell you MS-DOS. That was the original play for Microsoft, was to sell MS-DOS to IBM. And IBM at the time didn't believe PCs were going to be much more than a fad, and they didn't want it. I mean, I guess they also felt they could write a better one themselves, but they never did. There was a PC DOS. IBM wrote a thing called PC DOS, and they used that for a while, but then MS DOS was just unstoppable, and they ended up having to license it anyway. But originally, Bill Gates was going to sell him the whole thing for like $5 million or something, just crazy. Lucky for him, they turned him down. Yeah, Jackie was just blown away by that concept. She actually didn't know. Now, Jackie is 21 She's 21 years old, and she never heard of MS-DOS. She was majoring. She switched to business and management, but she went to Stevens and she was going to be a coder. So she was actually learning to be a coder, studying code, and never heard of MS-DOS. Never heard of MS-DOS, never heard of COBOL. I never had that conversation with her before, but that shows you in her entire life, it never came up between us. I just haven't had the conversation. I said to her, you don't know what MS-DOS is? Don't you like learn history of coding? And she's like, you know, history, that's like HTML is history. It's not MS-DOS. You know, they're into Python and things like that, which I don't know anything about. So so coding changes, but people just forget all about the past. It's so funny. But the whole concept that there used to be a single, you know, computer operating language. And I said my dad was a COBOL programmer. He's a systems analyst. And he knew COBOL, and I was explaining to him now how legacy systems, because they have this problem where she's working, legacy systems that were written in COBOL, they can't do anything with it now. A lot of companies, they didn't convert these legacy systems, and they figured, oh, we'll have an archive and we'll be able to link back to it and stuff, but they didn't anticipate the concept of the programmers are all dead. There's no COBOL programmers left. My dad would be, oh my God, he'd be 90 now. I mean, they just, and even when he was alive, he died in did he die in 2000? Yeah, because he died at the end of 1999. Yeah, so my dad died in late 1999, and even at that time, there were very few programmers of COBOL left. It was a big problem. And now it's 20-something years later, and I can't even imagine what they're doing to program. And the schools never recognized it as a problem, and so there's all these legacy COBOL systems that were the original major systems, especially in governments and stuff like that, that they don't know what to do with. They're running on it day to day. There are some people who know how to put band-aids on it and stuff, but they can't rewrite the system or export all the data or change it much. That's why sometimes you go to these places and you're amazed that they still have these like old terminals and stuff. You're like, why would you have that? It's because they can't change the system. They're stuck with it. It's actually interesting. And you would think in a school like Stevens, though, that they would say to you, hey, some people might want to learn COBOL. It's like this ancient language. I mean, it's like people used to learn Latin a long time after it died. You might want to learn COBOL to make yourself useful in the job field. But anyway, none of that matters. What matters is China Evergrande. China Evergrande, which we started talking about. Yeah, it's a global indicator. That's what the problem is. You've got to realize that this is not unique. There are many, many companies that have invested in buildings that are never going to be filled. We have, and again, I can't stress this enough. We have 50% occupancy of the building, but inside the 50% occupant companies, they are only 50% employees at those companies. So you have a half-empty building, and the companies in that half-empty building have only half of their staff reporting to work. Most of them are, half are remote working. So they don't need half their space, roughly. So that means that, and it's a slow-moving catastrophe because a commercial lease is 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, depending. I mean, the bigger somebody is, like a big law firm is going to take a 20-year lease because they're like, well, this is going to be our spot. We're not leaving. We don't want to get pushed out or have our rent raised. So those sign very long-term contracts. Most commercial leases are for 10 years for decent-sized companies, 20 years for very large companies, and they are 5 years for generally a retail store or something like that. So literally 75% of the space over time is going to be unused unless you can convince workers to go back to the workforce, in which case you're still only going to max out at 50%. And companies, it's an interesting thing. They're trying to force the workers to go back to work because they want to justify the office space they have, but that's a weird sort of dynamic, right? You think they would say, okay, great, let's save money on the office space, especially people who are in downtown, metro areas where it's unbelievably expensive. But all that's going to adjust. It's all going to fall apart, and the landlords who expected to sell, you build a building like this one in Miami that there was just news on. It was, anyways, a 15-acre site in Miami, and I believe it was a $300 million or something like that. And it was beautiful waterfront area. It sticks out on a little island, and a train, one of those Miami trains goes right to it. Like the Chicago thing, like BL in Chicago. Like it's not a monorail. It's just an elevated train. That's why I call it the L in Chicago. It's elevated, actually. So anyway, so whatever Miami calls their elevated train, but anyway, it goes all through downtown Miami and this island, and they had 15 they had buildings, retail space, so on and so forth. They had wanted to make a casino, but the state turned down the casino, and that seems to have lost any justification for the space, for the building. So the guy who was going to buy it is now defaulted on his thing. He's given up his deposit, and it's over. And now these guys are sitting and stuck with this land and the buildings, and there's no point to it, frankly, because it doesn't matter that it's beautiful and fantastic spot and so on and so forth. There's not enough people to fill it. And it hasn't gotten so bad because it's only been, don't forget, everybody got their rent paid for basically by government stimulus in 2021 and 2022. In 2023, this is the first year that we're really doing this on our own, and the pressure is only just starting. As I said, let's say the average is 7 years for commercial properties, right? Let's say the average lease expires in 7 years. So far, only 1/7 of the pressure is being exerted on the declining space. Next year, it'll be 2/7 because they're going to be stuck with the same stuff they're stuck with now. And then next year, more leases come up for change. Then the next year, 3/7. Now you're into half, right? So by 2025, the pressure on American commercial real estate will be the same as China Evergrande and where they are in defaults now. It'll be the same on the major commercial real estates as China's at, because China didn't have the same dynamics with the stimulus and so on and so forth. So these guys they borrowed. Understand, they have 340 billion in debt. Now let's assume, because they didn't, let's assume they basically didn't pay anything back. They built $340 billion worth of buildings, and their losses in the last 10 years, let's say they built $340 billion worth of buildings. Their losses are $80 billion, 40 billion a year, 10% a year is their loss. You can't fix that. It gets worse every single year. And that's just one company. Do you know what losing $40 billion in the S&P 500 would be like Apple losing half its revenue? It'd be a complete disaster. It would take down the Apple would take down the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 and the Dow all at the same time in an epically bad way. And we're heading to that, and people just act like it doesn't matter. And it's the same thing that happened in 2007. And I used to rant and rave about this in 2007 and say, it does matter. It's going to matter. I don't know when it's going to matter. It's going to matter. And I'm saying that now too. It's going to matter. Don't know when. We learned in 2007 that people can ignore a very obvious problem for a very long time. 2006 is when things started to turn sour in real estate. And it took until 2008, took 2 full years after it was obvious that there was a problem with the real estate. It took 2 more years for people to figure out that, okay, so if the real estate drops in value, so if a 3-bedroom house in New Jersey in a suburb isn't worth $1 million, then it takes us 2 years to figure out that that's bad for the bank that lent $900,000 on that home. That's how long it took people to make this connection. And then then the connection became also, it's like, oh gee, then maybe there's too many realtors. Maybe too many people are realtors, and maybe too many people are mortgage brokers. And maybe too many people are bank financial officers and things like that. And all of a sudden you realize how much stuff is connected to housing, movers, painters, all this stuff, durable goods, washing machines and such. All this stuff started falling apart all at the same time because the housing market collapsed. So I had a real estate, this is how PhilStockWorld started. I had a real estate data company in 2004. And by 2005, I was like, we had 100 employees. It was a good little business. It was making a couple $1 million a year. But we had, we were making the money. We do our analytics. We look at what's going on. I'm like, at first we started saying, hey, you know what? The same house is being sold 3 times in 1 year. There were certainly people were flipping homes so fast that the same home would sell 3 times in a year. The average home was turning over once every 3 years in New Jersey at the time. And the historical average is once every 10 years. And you know me, I'm a big mean reversion guy. I believe things revert back to the mean for a reason. So you say, well, if business now is based on a 3-year average turnover, because everybody was selling their house and everybody's refinancing their house, you need to do the same real estate data searches on refinances as well. So between the selling and the refinancing, it was like a complete frenzy. And I said, this can't go on. I said, well, what's going to happen? And people are going to every 6 months, homes are going to be sold every 6 months. No, so there's no more growth. I said, we're at peak. So I sold the company. Obviously, you sell a company when it's peaking out. Same way you sell stock, you sell a company. You got to be realistic when you evaluate things. So I sold the company and retired. That was how and then I got bored of being retired, so I started PhilStockWorld. That's basically the short story of how PhilStockWorld started. Just something I could do for my house. It was fun, It was a good thing to do. Because I just couldn't stand not working. It was driving me nuts. Anyhow, so it takes a long time for even very obvious problems to go. Evergrande has been a disaster, has been a known disaster for 2 years, and now we're just only now because they delayed their reports. This is why they haven't actually reported 2021 and 2022. They kept putting it off, and now they're saying, "Oops, we only make 81 billion a year." Why? Revenues are half of what they were pre-COVID, even during COVID in 2021. But revenues are half of what they were. And why is that? Well, because they built all this, people who had put deposits on places and people who were paying for construction costs and so on and so forth, they all stopped. They defaulted. There's no money there. They closed out that. They've got the same problem we have. They have half empty buildings. They were living off pre-construction. People would put deposits down on these buildings they were building, and that's how they would use that money to loan out to the bank. The problem is now the bank loaned them the money, they built the building, but the people who said they were going to pay the other 90% for the apartments and whatever, they've now just defaulted on it and said, nope, we can't. It's not going to happen now. And of course they're going to default because they put down, again, it's the same thing. They put down $100,000 on a 3-bedroom apartment that was valued at $1 million, and now now the valuation is $500,000. So Evergrande is like, well, you put $100,000 down, pay us $1 million. They're like, why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. I'd rather take a $100,000 loss than give you $900,000 more so that I have a place that's worth $500,000. That's insane. And Evergrande, in some cases, obviously, is lowering the price for the people and whatever, but it's not enough money for them to justify the building. Same problem with the Miami guy. There's not enough money to justify the building. Somebody walked away from thing in San Francisco, same problem. It doesn't make any sense. I'd rather bankrupt this company than keep going. There's no sanity to keep going. Sorry, bank. You now own a lot. You now own this lot and a half-built building as an asset. So on paper, that looks good to the bank. It's like, well, we got this half-built building and we have a lot, and all we got to do is finish the building. But you're not going to get the board of directors of the bank to approve finishing a building and becoming a landlord. That's not what banks do. They would rather take a loss on the lot and the half-built building and get out of the thing. They're not going to continue and treat it like they own it. And that's really the fallacy of all bank lending, because when, especially construction loans, because it's like selling a put, right? If you don't really want to own the stock, don't sell the put. But that's what banks are effectively doing. They're selling a put on a property. They're giving a loan on a property, and the collateral is the property and the value of the building that's being built. But that all sounds great if the bank wanted to own it, but they don't. And part of that is an antitrust thing. It's that they broke up. The banks can't be the same company as the building and so on and so forth. It does actually make sense though, because if the banks were a landlord company, were a rental company, or REIT, and the bank, so if the bank was a REIT and the bank was a building company, and the bank was a lending company, the whole thing would make more sense. Because they could then just flip the building into the construction division at a very low price. The construction division would then finish it up and make a profit, or at least break even on the sale. And everybody would get paid from the bank's perspective. But the way it is now, somebody's got to take a very large loss. But you can't even find lenders to pick it up. If it's a commercial property, you can't even find somebody to buy it for half price because it still looks risky. because you're not going to get the rents that were projected. So economic growth fell 3% last year, which is really bad. It's like 50 in 50 years. It's the second lowest level they've ever had. Okay, so and then you've got to think that you've got $340 billion worth of property that's going to hit the market in a fire sale. And that's going to put pressure on prices, and that's going to now domino and topple everybody else in the property sector. You know, if a company that represents 10% of the property sector is selling their stuff to half price, how is the rest of the property sector going to compete? Then they're all going to, even if they're not in trouble now, they're going to be in trouble when this starts settling down. It's going to happen. It is happening, but it's a very slow moving thing. So people tend to think, oh no, wait, pick a time snooze, just go away. So people think you don't have to worry about something just because, like, oh well, like lightning, right? Like you know, if there's a big thing of lightning, you're like, oh no, the power's going to go out. Then it doesn't go out, and you're like, oh great, no problem. You know, it doesn't mean that the power didn't go out somewhere. It doesn't mean that the next strike won't cause the power to go out. It's a matter of timing. But this isn't like a lightning storm. This is more like, you know, a snail race. It's like it's going to, you know, they'll all get there eventually, but you don't know when. Very, very slow prospects. Based in Shenzhen, Evergrande was the property company caught in the Chinese regulators, forced developers to reduce soaring debts. Evergrande's struggle prompted fears of shock waves, blah, blah, blah. But total Chinese corporate government and household debt has risen to 300% of economic output. I was just talking about how we have a debt problem. How's this for a debt problem? Chinese corporate government and household debt has risen to 300% of the economy. That would be, let me see. Well, we know, we just did that number today. We know that corporate debt is, I believe it was $15 trillion, and then, whoops. So corporate debt, $15 trillion, and then there's, oh no, I'm sorry, it's like 30, it was like 100% of GDP, wasn't it? I forgot already. All right, hang on, we'll do that, and we'll do that after. 300% is what we got to remember. Evergrande earlier said it had $350 billion in assets, but it's struggling to turn them into cash. It's not 350. It's on the books for 350. They're never going to sell it for that. At the end of the year, its assets were down from 2 trillion the year before. Okay. Oh, I see. They said they had 350. Now it's 250. Liabilities rose to 340 billion. This is horrifying. By the end of last year, they struggled to restructure debts. The company's net loss was 66 billion in 21 and the 15 billion last year. They just, I mean, how are you going to survive this? And they're not. And when they default, it's going to be a total catastrophe. So what was it I was saying today? I forgot. Questions? No questions? Okay, good job. Whoa. Not still trending down a bit. So much for 16,000. So what do we say about corporate debt? There's the number. All right, so corporate debt, 25 trillion. Consumer debt, 5 trillion, which is insane, but I mean, it's 5 trillion. What is that? Billion, 1, 2, 3. 5 trillion is a lot. Divided by 300 million people, 300,000. So it's 16,000 per person, and then times 3 for a family. It's about $50,000 per family of debt. That's not good, It's basically, if the median wage is 50,000, essentially people are 1 year in debt. But that's at 100% of GDP. China's 3 years in debt compared to us, 300% of their GDP. So, but companies being 3 years of, 3 years in debt, that's not good either. You're investing in a company that's going to take 3 years to pay off its debt, even if they used every cent they had in cash flow to do that. And frankly, most companies, you see much larger numbers than that. And that's only because some companies like Apple have cash and they offset it. So but that's the problem. When you look at the S&P 500, you're not investing in Apple alone. Apple is saving everybody else. Apple's ridiculous earnings, JP Morgan's ridiculous earnings are the ones that are offsetting all the other earnings that aren't worth investing in. Yet, because we are an ETF society, everything gets dragged up along with. That's why we have these ridiculous ratios. There are, as we said last week, I think it was last week in the webinar. Was it? I can't imagine when else would have had this conversation. I think in last week's webinar, we looked at the S&P 500 and we determined that there were only like 9, 11, something like that companies. So let's say 10. So there are 10 companies in the S&P 500 that are actual providers of AI. Like Microsoft is a provider of AI. Okay, they own or license ChatGPT directly. They have an investment in it, and they provide the cloud services that allow it to operate. So Google, an actual provider of AI. IBM is an actual provider of AI. Amazon is a provider of AI, although a little less so, but through the cloud services, we're going to give them a win on that one. But it drops off really fast from there. There aren't, NVIDIA, let's say, isn't a provider of AI because they directly have the chips that make AI possible. So when you want to say who benefits from AI, yeah. But everybody else, including Adobe, including Salesforce.com and whoever, they are not providers of AI. They are licensors of AI who are reselling the AI license. And so while it is clever of Microsoft to add AI service to Excel, and I'm not saying it's a mistake of any kind, it's great, but the reality is down the road, Google, if my experience with Excel is to talk to an AI and it gives me a spreadsheet, then what if I talk to Google and it gives me a spreadsheet? The output is the same. It's a spreadsheet. It's exactly what I asked it for. So then it becomes a price issue. This has not been the case. Google Sheets is not as popular as Excel. Excel is much older. It has a lot more customer experience to draw on, and Microsoft has made it great. And most people train on Excel and are experts in Excel from going back many, many years, because Microsoft killed Lotus, and that was really the only competition. And Google only just came on the scene with their sheets, not 5 years ago, whatever. But they don't have this. They don't have the user base and so on and so forth to make it as popular. So Microsoft has that advantage. But again, as you get towards Star Trek, which is their only real use for computers, they push the little pin on their chest and say, computer, what is this? Or computer, what is that? And they get an answer, right? Once you get to that point in society where you rely on your AI, and your AI is reliable, then what difference does it make who supplies the AI? You might like one over the other or whatever, but the bottom line is they're going to be pretty generic, and nobody's going to give a crap what they're doing in the background to get you these answers. So when I say and again, it's not accurate now, but let's be real. Well, we can't be real. I don't have it. Bing, thank you. Okay, so I'll give this a refresh just in case. Okay. What are the largest market cap public companies trading with PE ratios below 15 and debt that is less than 3 years profits. Why do you have to give me a preamble? Wow, is that true? Is NVIDIA really down that low? You see, the problem is this says 28.6. It's not exactly not what I asked for. Zim Shipping. It's not a big enough company. That's the best you can do. What the hell was that? Whoa. Is it working? Nope. Isn't that weird? Pop the gasket. Anyway, not reliable, obviously. Although let me check out NVIDIA now that they're saying it, because I'm surprised they're still that cheap in market cap. Maybe we should still invest. This says 50. I don't know where you got it from. Well, let's say 20 or 20 to 25 billion, depending on who you ask. 20 billion is 50, yeah. So he's off in space. So it's 40 to 50 PE for NVIDIA, not 16. If it was 16, that'd be great. So anyway, so Bing, although it disappeared for whatever reason, gives you the totally wrong answer. But what if it was 100%? And it will be eventually. What if these things were 100% accurate? And all you have to do is that. I don't need a spreadsheet then, do I? I don't need to look at charts. I don't need to do things. Just find me the best ones. You know, we have stock screeners now and they work pretty well, but they're cumbersome to use. But if you can just talk to the thing and get your answers, then it's not going to really matter, right? And frankly, when you use a screener, a market screener, you're not worried about where their data source is coming from or what kind of spreadsheets they're using and so on and so forth. It becomes divorced from the game. So when we advance in AI, it's going to disrupt the sources. And that's frankly, the writers, the Hollywood writers and the actors, that's what they're striking about now. They see this. And you know why they see this? Because Thanos is CGI. You know, the greatest actor in Marvel movies is a CGI character. You know, there's a guy doing the Thanos. I forget his name, but he's the same guy. He's obviously the same guy who did Cable in the Deadpool thing. I forget the guy's name. Anyway, so you know, it's acting but CGI, but the actors know, they're in these movies. The actors know that they only are kind of needed for this stuff. It's really barely something. And then they see, you know, they're in these studios working with the highest level of tech. They see this stuff. And so they know that they are not very far from being replaced completely. And the singers see it too. And the singers say, we're not, you know, these AIs are capable of writing music, they're capable of writing words, you know, maybe not, you know, again, not as good as an artist now, but they'll get good. And especially if they're allowed to, you know, learn from all the past music, which again, this is my issue with all that also. You know, various people are suing the AI companies now over that the AI used their work and is now recreating it. Isn't that how you do things? Don't, you know, when a human being picks up a guitar, you don't say, I will only play original notes that I've never heard before. It's like, no, you listen to the Beatles and you play the Beatles. Everybody, you go to look at America's Got Talent. 90% of the people who sing somebody else's songs. This is how you learn. They get judged on how well they sing somebody else's song. They don't have to have an original song. I'm pretty sure The Voice is the same way. You're not singing your original work. I always really appreciate it when someone comes out and does an original song. I think it's, to put yourself out there and have people listen to something fresh and to play a song and people judge you on the merits of what you did, your song, your words. But even then, that person started off playing, Hank Williams or whatever the hell they're playing, or Lennon McCartney. They started off with somebody else's work and they developed a style from merging that. Artists do that too. Painters do that too. You don't start off just creating stuff. When you're a kid, you do, though. I guess you finger paint and stuff. But, when you're learning art, they teach you the masters. They teach you the classics. And the same thing for writing. You don't write without learning. You don't write without reading. You read other people's styles and you eventually develop your own style. So if I'm a lawyer in court defending AI, that's my defense. I'm like, this is how everybody learns. If you've put information publicly out on the internet for people to listen to, then there's nothing wrong with the AI listening to it, and the AI will do it. Now, if you want to say he copied what you wrote, it's subject to the same copyright law as anything else. If he really copied it, great. You have a lawsuit. But if he just listened to your music and you say, well, there's something in there that's kind of like what I do, no, I'm sorry. If it's in the style of what you do, oh my God, look at how much music is in the style of what people do. Shit, the Beatles ripped everybody off. Elvis ripped everybody off. I mean, both, everybody rips everybody off to some extent. How many times do you listen to a song and you recognize like a chord sequence from another song or a musical bit from another song and say, oh yeah, they must be fans of this guy. So what? That's how art, and that's human evolution. I mean, that's the thing. What are you gonna start suing humans for evolving the same way as the other guy? At some point, you have to allow for the fact that people learn and AI learns. Because the logic they're using to attack the AI, you can attack 9 out of 10 musical bands and 9 out of 10 artists and 9 out of 10. Oh, and what about TV? Where is the originality in television? They don't even bother pretending anymore. Movies too. The third installment, the fifth, sixth, Indiana Jones. Where is the originality in this crap? They really can't think of anything better for Harrison Ford to do than Indiana Jones #5, and again, all CGI. He's de-aged. That's not him. He's acting, but it's a complete face-over for him. And the actors know this. We are only 10 years away, 20 years tops away from having absolutely no need for them at all. And even now, the other day, there's a news item. There's this Volkswagen in, I want to say Spain, probably Spain, a Spanish-speaking country. There is this music star who died many years ago, and her daughter is now a music star. And they did a commercial in the Volkswagen of her mother driving her mother apparently had a Volkswagen back in the day. And the commercial is the generations, the two women with the mother driving her Volkswagen singing songs and the daughter driving her Volkswagen singing songs. It's very nice and tender. And people say it's a wonderful commercial. Totally AI. I mean, the daughter's not, but the mother is. Everything totally AI. Completely recreated her by AI. Her song, her voice, her face, but it was done by AI. And it's the same, it's kind of the same thing as when you go to see Tupac live and it's a big hologram. This is the future. And it's so weird. And again, some people, not normal people, frankly. Some people are upset about the fact that they recreated this woman who is an iconic singer, and they recreated her, even though it's her own daughter giving the blessing to the thing, that they recreated her with an AI. And the director of the commercial for Volkswagen, he goes, if we had hired an actor who looked just like her, nobody would complain. that this is just it's not whatever you call it. It's like racism against AI. People are just like, if it involves AI, it's bad. And there's going to be a group of those people. They were Luddites back in the Industrial Revolution 100 years ago. People were smashing machines because they were replacing factory workers. And there was a whole group called the Luddites that had their own political party and were completely against technology and wanted it removed. They were against everything technological. So now we're going to have the anti-AI groups, and they're going to be around for quite a long time. It's going to be a thing that unfortunately, some political groups are going to cater to these people. But it's ridiculous. And I think the whole concept of saying that a machine isn't allowed to learn from history is ridiculous. But what's unfortunate for the actors, though, is that that whole profession is going to die out. And the writers too, don't need them. You unfortunately don't need them. You're going to say, you're going to say, write me a Seinfeld script with this idea, or make up your own ideas. He's not as good as ChatGPT in any way. Oh, let's do a test. Please come up with 5 new episodes of Seinfeld. Give me the highlights and make sure it hasn't been done before. Modify, use current issues that would be funny. Okay. Now let's see if we can get Warren to do that. Here you are. Oh, come on. Okay. Okay. The vaccine. Jerry gets offered a chance to perform at a comedy festival in Europe, but he needs to get vaccinated for COVID. He tries to book an appointment, but the website crashes. He then goes to clinics, pharmacies, but they're out of stock or along the lines. He finally finds a place that has doses left, but he has to choose between Pfizer and Moderna. He can't decide. He asks his friends. George says he should take Pfizer. He should take Moderna. Doesn't really sound like. Kramer says AstraZeneca because it has a cool name. Jerry ends up taking none of them and misses his flight. The NFT. George discovers an old high school project. It's good. The influencer. Elaine starts dating a handsome, charming guy named Jake, who works as an influencer on social media. This is good. Invasion. Kramer becomes convinced Russia is planning to invade Ukraine, start World War III, decides to join the militia. It doesn't sound like Kramer. The reboot. Jerry gets contacted by Netflix. He wants to make a reboot of Seinfeld with new actors playing the old roles. They show, okay, these are not terrible ideas, actually. What is this? He shows them a list of potential candidates. Jerry is not impressed. Is he really going into a lot of thought about these things? Okay, nice. Now, oh, what the heck? He broke. Warren got broken on this. It's too creative for him, I think. Here we go. The crypto conundrum highlights. Jerry and George discover a new cryptocurrency that promises huge returns. Kramer becomes obsessed with mining cryptocurrencies. The virtual assistant. Jerry and George become reliant on a new virtual assistant app on their phone, leading to absurd situations. Okay, these are not terrible ideas. Then you feed the idea back into the AI and you say, flesh out this script. And then you just, you're not writing. And once you figure out how this works, this process, you set up a loop and basically you don't need a writer. You're just, this is your writer room. Look at this, the streaming wars, the social media snafu. Jerry sends an embarrassing message. George tries to leverage it to gain popularity, but his attempts backfire and he becomes subject to ridicule and sked. Elaine attempts to help Jerry in damage control, and Kramer becomes an influencer by accident. Viral videos of bizarre mishaps gain a massive following, leading to unexpected consequences. Yes, this was better because it worked. And the streaming wars. George, Jerry, Elaine, and Kramer each become obsessed with different streaming services, leading to heated debates and conflicting opinions. The gang attends a pop culture convention where they encounter passionate fans of British souls. George tries to convince his boss to make workplace policy that allows employees to watch streaming shows during work hours. Jerry's stand-up routine gets derailed by hecklers arguing about the streaming shows, forcing him to improvise and hilariously comment on the absurdity of the situation. All right, so there. But the thing is that it can take that and then write a whole script, and then it can put the characters in as they were when they were young or older, whatever you want to do with them. You can have various things that are old Seinfeld, young Seinfeld, middle Seinfeld, anything for the last 20, 30 years. You could have caveman Seinfeld shows. You know, you can see this is ridiculous, right? So what do I hire writers for and pay them $250,000? And you know, if you have watched 30 Rock, basically goof off all day. My cousin is a writer. He does mostly movies and plays, but you know, writing is a creative process. You really can't fault the people, but they generally, a writer's room will be 10 guys whose job is to sit around all day long and come up with different ideas for a show and then figure out a script and work on funny lines and so on and so forth. This thing spits them out in 5 minutes. So yeah, of course, all these writers are very paranoid that they're going to be in trouble. It could be, you might consider it a little basic now, a little juvenile now, and they don't really understand humor perfectly. But as you're learning with Robo John Oliver, right? It can put out some pretty impressive content. And this is nothing. I'm not working hard on this, right? I just put in a little prompt, and that's what I got out of Google and Bing. I got 5 show ideas already. And then all I have to do is sit down and develop that into a script. So am I the writer? I don't, you know, do I really consider myself the writer if I do that? No. He's the writer. So ultimately, this is all going to be great for the studios, except for the next step, which means you don't need a studio, because you're going to be able to say to your team, make me 5 new episodes of Seinfeld. What do you need a studio for if your TV can figure it out for itself? And not your actual TV, but it goes back to an open AI type of situation, and it gets sent all the show and all the data and all the information of a brand new Seinfeld show that's made just for you. And then you're going to think one's really good, and you're going to send it to your friends, and your friends will send it out, and you've got a viral episode of Seinfeld that was created on your machine. But what did you do? Nothing. You asked it to show you a Seinfeld show that you've never seen before. Make one up. And if you want to say, you know, can you do Seinfeld on the moon? Do Seinfeld on Mars? Do Seinfeld under the water? Do Seinfeld if they're all fish? It'll figure it out. Oh, well, yeah. Give me an episode of Seinfeld where the characters are all fish. The Fantastic Fiasco. Fish tank, colorful swimming pool. George, wait, I gotta see this. Oh my God. All right, this has very little do stocks. Yeah, George, Jerry, Elaine, Kramer in the fish tanks are engaging fish-like behavior and conversations. Jerry and George over here room with a new fish that's been added to the tank. They're excited to meet. Elaine swims over the latest gossip about the fish, describing this most attractive fish they've ever seen. Meeting the new fish, the gang gathers around the new fish, a striking, beautiful beta fish named Betty. Kramer swims in, claiming he knows Betty from another tank, tries to impress her with his fish tails. George becomes envious of Betty's attention towards Jerry, starts plotting to win her over. Elaine tries to flirt with sophisticated angelfish, but her fish puns and jokes fall flat, leading to awkwardness. I mean, come on. I've seen worse episodes of Seinfeld. Look how he thought the whole thing through. These are scenes. Fish Day drama. Fish Tank Comedy Club. Jerry suggests organizing a comedy show in the tank. Kramer volunteers to be a comedian. His eccentric performance gets mixed reactions from the fish audiences. George's fishy plan. George seeks advice from very wise old fish. A snail. Is a snail a fish? I object to that. Not only Betty's a fish. All right, hang on a minute. No, it's not. Is a snail a fish? Well, I guess it's a thing in a fish tank. Fish are vertebrates. They have internal snails, and crustaceans are invertebrates. So what is it? Is a snail a crustacean? Wait, yeah, there you go. What the hell is a snail? This is ridiculous. Yes, what is a snail classified as? Bugs and snails are invertebrates. Snails are molluscular, okay, so they're mussels, basically. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. All right, but they do live in fish tanks, so I guess he has a point. Fish Spot, the beta fish drama, the fish tank confessions, fish friends reunited. I want to see this show now. All right, anyway. The point being, where were we? We were discussing the S&P. We were on a stock topic. We were discussing the S&P 500. So there are very few companies in the S&P 500 that are directly creating AI. There are companies, though, obviously, like, you know, who is it? Sony? Is it Sony who owns Seinfeld or NBC? So it's companies like, yeah, Comcast. So Comcast owns Seinfeld, and now without paying the cast anything, depending on the contract, which is what the strike's about, right? So without paying the cast any more money, they can now produce 1,000 new episodes of Seinfeld. They can now, like I said, license it to my TV so that my TV can pay whatever fee to Comcast, and I can create my own Seinfeld. Now, I understand from see what Comcast is saying is we own 180 episodes of Seinfeld. We have the absolute right to do whatever we want with it. We paid billions of dollars for this right. Larry David is a billionaire. Jerry Seinfeld is a billionaire because we gave them so much money. And that so much money was under a contract that says we have the right to distribute, recreate, rebrand, blah, 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 blah. So now the question is, does that include using those 180 shows and all the writing and all the angles of camera and all the images of all the people in the show? Does it include the right to now take that, put it into an AI, and now spit out a stream of new content? Are you robbing the cast? Should you have paid them billions of more dollars? Didn't you do all the work? Didn't you own that content that they created? So someone is going to have a tremendous benefit from this. Now, right now, that's what the strike is about. The strike is about the writers and the actors coming together and saying, okay, we see this future. We see this future, but then you think about that future, and this is already happening, by the way. They have actors coming in for one day to do voice work or whatever, and one day to do some shots, and they fake the rest. They don't need they don't need an extra to come in for more than one day. They just needed your face and body and movement so they could put you in a crowd. Most large crowd scenes in movies now are CGI, are basically computer generated. There's very, very few, movies that are made that have a large crowd that's real. They don't put 60,000 people in a stadium. They put one section of a stadium, they film that, and then they clone it over and over and over again, whatever. AI makes it possible for you to vary all the people dozens of ways. You guys have seen that, where you can upload your picture and it gives you 25 different looks back of superheroes or whatever you want to do, and they all look fairly different. You can do that in various ways and create thousands of people out of every person you photograph. So just logically, technologically, we're not very far away, less than 20 years away from people just saying, okay, I need 50,000 people in a stadium. I need one specific lady who does this. I need one guy doing this. I need a hot dog guy like that. I need this and that. And there's my scene. Boom, done. No no 50 guys working. Just, you know, when you see the credits of a movie, there's like 1,000 people in the credits of the movie. No, you don't need those guys anymore. You need John the programmer and his AI. Those are the guys who get the credit for pretty much everything that happens in the movie outside of the leads. And you don't need the leads. And you didn't need the writers. You didn't need the script. You didn't need the book that the script was copied from. I mean, this is entertaining. This is, I'm not saying it's great, but it's entertaining, and it's as good as certainly lower quality shows than Seinfeld. I mean, I watch so much crap on TV. I can't believe somebody paid for it. And movies too. Why am I paying $200 million for a movie? Not to mention the fact that Disney owns all the Marvel comics, right? All of them. Couldn't even tell you how many there are. Well, I could tell you. Let's see. There was always a new one. They didn't take vacations. So generally there were 50, but then there were various titles, and they might be like, you know, Superman had his own comic, but then Superman was with Batman in The Brave and the Bold, and then Superman was with the Justice League, and Superman might have had two different comics at the same time, like Superman and doing something else kind of thing. Batman had detective comics, and Batman had the regular Batman, and Batman had another, you know, so like 5 Batmans, 5 Supermans, 50 times a week, I mean 50 times a year. So let's say Batman and Superman alone had let's say 10 titles, 50 times a year, 500 a year, and that's been since, for God's sake, I mean, certainly since 1960s. So that would be, whoa, how many years is this now? Now it's 60 years. So 60 years of going back times, what do we say, 500 a year is 30,000 comics. They were written by people who are mostly dead and not going to sue. They were written by people and illustrated by people who are dead, who made works of art that were completely and utterly owned by Marvel Comics, that they could do whatever they wanted to with the characters and so on and so forth. They have already passed the legal hurdle of making movies without paying these people. So now you don't need the writers. You know, everything you've ever seen in the movies is basically from a comic. There's so much material in these comics. Now somebody gets the comics and they write a script based on the timeline, like the Infinity Wars, even the new Nick Fury thing is a secret war with the Skrulls. That was a comic book thing when I was a kid. All the characters, all the things they do, the villains they face, they were all already done in the comics. This was written decades ago. All they're doing is putting it on screen now. But soon they can just take that whole comic book library and just infinitely create movies, infinitely, whenever they want, with a budget of a couple of $1 million each one, because the computer's going to do all the work. No more actors, no more writers, no more nothing. And again, once the computer learns that style, it can start doing original work. Like here, there's 180 Seinfelds to refer to. So the computer, so you know, these guys just read the scripts of the Seinfelds that they've seen already. And all I said, please come up with 5. This is my entire instruction. 5 new episodes of Seinfeld. Give me highlights. Make sure it hasn't been done before, and use current issues would be funny. Boom. So it's going to be a very, very different world. And it's going to cause a lot of disruption in a lot of industries. Same thing for lawyers. And the lawyers are going to fight like hell to make it illegal for you to use AI. But if you wanted to, I mean, look, this AI has passed the bar exam already. This AI has passed the medical school exams already. So if I want to talk to a doctor, and I can and again, when I can feel I reasonably can count on this thing to say, I have this problem, I have that problem, I have that problem, what do you think it is? And it's going to tell me, I think you might have this, you should get this checked, here's the kind of doctor you need to go see. It's going to refer me itself. So it won't be just me in that case, though. It's going to be the healthcare companies. They're going to say, well, what are we paying these doctors for? Why does my healthcare company want to send me to a doctor to tell me something when they can just have their own machine, their own AI, track what's wrong with me and figure it out and be my personal doctor under their supervision that monitors my care and make sure I follow the most expedient and inexpensive course of action. These are major, major societal changes that are just around the corner. What do I need teachers for? You know, again, we're not there yet, but we will be there. All right. You know, what would you teach me if I wanted to learn about American history? Let's say I have 1 hour a day, 5 days a week for 20 weeks. Please draw up a, what do you call it, a curriculum? Shows another R in there somewhere. Yep. Please draw up a curriculum. Here you go. I mean, this is insane, right? Because the sum total of human knowledge is in this thing. And basically what's going on now is people are trying to sue to stop this from happening because it changes everything. Because we've now efficiently found a way, and again, it's not accurate yet, but it will be. We've efficiently found a way to create, to utilize all this knowledge efficiently. We never did that before. We've always had this haphazard mess. So you can take this lesson plan and you can say, oh, I want to know more about the Industrial Revolution, although I'm sure it's in there somewhere, Roaring 20s, Gilded Age and Industrialization. There it is. Rise of industry, growth of cities, impact of immigration on American society. All right, so now watch this. Please give a daily plan for week 6. Gilded Age, rise of industrial, impact of immigration on American society, progressive era reforms of the late 19th and 20th century, and include issues with Luddites and how it compares to modern day pushback against AI. There you go. Introduction, Luddites, machinery, industrial revolution, understanding concerns about job displacement, comparison, blah, blah, blah. Each day, take a few minutes to compare the historical context, motivation, and Luddites. Day 1, both Gilded Age and modern age experience significant technological advancements. Industrialization, organization, draw parallels in Luddites, fear of machinery, and anxieties about AI, compare the rise of labor unions in the Gilded Age, contemporary movements advocating workers' rights and fair treatment, examine the role of immigrants in the industrial workforce, and consider how immigration and AI intersect in today's workforce, raising questions about job availability. I mean, this is good. And then all you do is, that's all you do as far as being if you want to design the curriculum, you just keep asking it to expand on this. And now give me a detail, you know, give me an actual lesson plan for day 1. Give me the actual readings. Please summarize and talk about everything. Give me a quiz for the end of the day. and boom, you got the whole thing done. And all these things I'm saying, it sounds like a lot, but realistically, one person sits down one time and writes the code to draw out the lesson plan and keep creating it, and then you've got a subroutine that will automatically make these things happen. And now you've got a flexible schooling where basically a kid can be on a curriculum like this and be taught this. And don't forget, this is very basic, but this can be done with an AI teacher. This can be done with screens that come up on your computer screen that show you, that give you videos and other things. And again, all generated by the AI. Videos generated by the AI that, watch General Custer at Little Bighorn, see the massacre. Here's an analysis of how it went and how it failed and what happened, whatever. Here are pictures, here are real pictures, here are paintings, here are artist renditions, blah, blah, blah. You can get really, really deep and keep going. And eventually the AI will learn to be reactive to the student. So the student will ask a question, the AI will respond. And it will respond individually to 1 million students at once off of this lesson. This is the future of education. There's no point in going, there will be no point in going to the classrooms. There will need to be some point to socialization, but that socialization doesn't have to be in classrooms. You can have 3 hours a day of communal playtime that is, effectively mandatory, of kids getting together and doing stuff. There should be a kids center where kids can go to enjoy themselves rather than be under the ridiculous pressure of school and having to socialize and so on and so forth. They could just have a specific place where they study at home, then they can go to the community center and play. As long as you finish your lessons, go play. Something like that. There's lots of ways to do it, but the point is we're there. We're basically right there already. This is going to be the future. So then you got to start thinking about what companies are going to benefit. See, remember, we're talking about stocks. Not that. I'm going to go back to yesterday's thing. So what companies are going to benefit and what's the future going to look like? And we have to keep that in the forefront of our minds. And you have to realize that there are people who are going to grab onto this stuff and do a great job with it, and there are people who are going to horrendously fail. And every time you get into a long-term stock pick, you've got to start thinking about this because it's changing now. We're basically, it's almost like being at the point where electricity was discovered. It's certainly at the point where the internet was rolled out. But more so because when the internet was rolled out, most people didn't have it. And it was slow and it was annoying. Remember the squelchy modem noises when you would connect and you would go through AOL because that's all anybody had, and you would get in through there and then you click on screens, and that was your internet back then. As compared to where we are now, it's dinosaur ages, and that was 20 years ago. 20 years ago was like the Stone Age for the internet. And 20 years from now, we're going to be the Stone Age for AI. And the way my daughter, who was born 20 years ago, doesn't even know what DOS was. 20 years from now, believe it or not, they're not your kid. Those kids won't know what Google was. They won't know, they won't be using AIs, and they won't understand why anybody would have ever typed into a search bar some question when all you have to do is ask your AI. And again, we talked about this recently. I said, what's the point of knowing things? All right, just like I have no need for, in fact, my brother the other day, he said, hey, Phil, I learned a trick for doing square roots. It's real easy. It was something stupid. It wasn't real. It only worked in certain examples. It was like a trick on the internet because basically they said, here's how you do square roots. And it showed like 3 or 4 examples that if you would take the number and double it and then leave off 1 digit, that would give you the square root of the number. Something like, something stupid like that, like some sequence that seems very simple, and it showed you 4 times that it worked with those numbers. But then I said, Andy, that can't possibly work, you know? And he started trying it with other numbers, and he realized it didn't work at all. And the thing about that is, because it's coincidence. I said, you know, you can't take the coincidence and say that's your new rule. It's not. The coincidence is there are obviously going to be certain sequences of numbers where that works. There's certain sequences of numbers where anything works. It doesn't mean it always works. It just means those numbers happen to, by coincidence, allow your theory to work to look correct. So it's the same thing. You've got to be aware of what's going to happen and what works and what doesn't work in the society we're building. And you can't look at the society we've built. So in other words, right now we are realizing commercial real estate doesn't work anymore, not the way it has been working for history, because things have changed. What has changed? Nothing you couldn't have predicted 20 years ago. Because of the internet, people don't need to be in an office. And I will tell you, that company I sold 20 years ago in 2005, that company had, I'd say about 30% of our people worked remotely. And they would come in once a week for office meetings. But, you know, so I wanted to make sure people came in once a week just to make sure we had a cohesive sort of unit and people were on the same track and everybody knew each other. That was also important. But the people who were doing research in the field, they had to do research in every single county in the state, so they were very far flung. We had put our office in the middle of the state in New Jersey. We had put the office in the middle of New Jersey so that it would be not such a horrible trip for any particular people to come into the office. But the reality was, asking them to drive in every day after they'd been out in the field all day gathering data, and to come into the office and to have their data inputted was stupid, because well, there were fax machines and they could dial in by modem and they could talk on the phone. So there was no need, you know, it was easier for them, not easier for us, but it was easier for them to just fax us over the work. And so that when they're done at the end of the day, they would fax us the data they collected. We had data input people in the office. Why should they have to come back to the office? It didn't make any sense. Plus, I saw it as a positive. I'm like, well, then we don't need 20 more desks. I had about, you know, we had 100 total people working for us, and we would have needed about, you know, 20, 30 people who would have had to have desks just to come back to at the end of the day. So we were using remote as soon as it came up, but that's just because I saw the efficiency of it. I was also the one that bullied my boss into getting me a mobile phone. And then once he got me a mobile phone, I'm talking about when they were like bricks that you would hold and radiate your head. So I justified me getting a mobile phone to him, but then once I had a mobile phone, he saw how efficient it was, and he got everybody a mobile phone. That was years before that. But yeah, I was like, I said, do you realize what I have to do? I said, I'm out there driving and doing work and going places. I was selling computers at the time. And I said, but then you guys need me and you beat me, and I have to go find a paid phone, and I have to have enough money, or I have to collect to the office. And I'm standing there when I could be driving while I'm talking to you. So it makes no sense. I said, you don't think, I said, I generate this much business for you in a half hour, and it was like millions a year. I said, I'm generating millions of dollars a year, and you're having me spend like an hour of my day sitting at a payphone? That makes no sense. You know, to save, I think it was like $500 a month or something crazy back then. But to save $500 a month, which is $6,000, you're gonna take $100,000 worth of business that I could have generated for you easily. $200,000 worth of business I could have generated. And I said, when someone gives me an order, you don't want me to call it in and tell you what the order is and have it start processing instead of when I'm going to the next client, you do this. It just was crazy not to do it. And he realized that. He saw my numbers went up when they got the phone. So he said, okay, all salespeople are going to get the phones. So where are we? Oh, portfolios, right. So what kind of stocks are still valid? So Simon Property Group is a mall operator. I like them. I think malls are eventually, there's always going to be a mall. You're always going to, no, let's not say always, but you know, the metaverse has technically failed. It hasn't really failed. It's really been pushed back, but it's not ready. In some concept, the metaverse should allow us to be able to go shopping and do whatever virtually, right? But in reality, I can't see, and maybe because I'm old, but my kids too, they go to physically shop. They want to see the jewelry, they want to try it on, they want to put on a pair of shoes, they want to put on the clothes and see how they fit and see how they feel. It's not a experience that you can just sort of skip over. And not only that though, it's also social, it's fun, it's a thing to do. It's, you know, it's an enjoyable way to do the shopping. I don't enjoy it. I haven't been to a mall literally since COVID began. I'm trying to think. No, feels weird. I'm thinking like I must have, but I haven't. I have not gone to a mall since COVID began. Because I don't even go to the movie theaters that I go to. The two movie theaters I go to, they're not at malls. I used to go to the mall because there was a movie theater. It's the main reason I go to the mall. But then once in a while I'm buying clothes. But I don't go to the mall, and that's also because I buy my clothes at Casual Male because I'm too big for regular malls. So I don't really buy very much. I wouldn't buy much at a regular mall, and I get my shoes at shoe stores. So no, I don't go. And there's no, and frankly, the malls don't have very good food, so I don't go for food either. I live in a town with like so many restaurants. It really would be silly to go to a mall restaurant. But anyway, and obviously I don't have some illusion I'm a typical mall customer, but the point is, it's still a social place. My kids come, oh, I have gone to a mall. I went with Jackie. She went because she wanted to buy something, perfume or something like that. That's when I went to a mall. It's like one time to a mall. But anyway, and we didn't walk around the mall. We went to buy the perfume and left. That's all we did. We didn't even walk around the store. It's just, you know, you have to think about things are changing. But Simon Property Group is a high-end upscale malls. I think there's a place for them. I think people want to touch the stuff they're going to buy. They want to see it. They want to feel it. Not everything, but the mall itself changes. The mall is just a vessel for the kind of stores that are working at the moment, right? It changes over time. So you see a lot of stores going in and out and whatever, but the point is the malls are generally full of people who are seeking the opportunity to market to a group, and Simon Property being an upscale with the anchors of like Bloomingdale's and Nordstroms and things like that, usually in their malls, they're the best mall operator. Those guys in SKT. SKT is an outdoor mall, usually outlets, and also ever popular. Gold is gold. Okay, so that's not going away. IBM, as I said, is one of the only people who actually provide AI services. Intel also, not directly an AI company, but you need the chips to run the computers and blah, blah, blah. The fact that, you know, it's not NVIDIA, but what are you using now? You got an Intel chip in the computer you're using now. There's the input devices are run by Intel chips. They're not run by NVIDIA chips. And you might have an NVIDIA video card, but Intel runs the brains of your computer. And many, many other devices, laptops and so on and so forth, okay? They're gonna be around for a very long time. JP Morgan, money is money, and they are the bank of the world. There's no, I don't, and they just reported whopping profits. I think it was like 14 billion for the quarter. I mean, unstoppable force of nature, these guys. Which portfolio is this? Oh, this is Money Talk, yeah. So, you know, because we can't touch it except for on the show, it has to be bulletproof stocks. Logitech is devices. I don't think I'd invest in them again. I think devices are kind of waning, but this one runs out this year and we're well in the money, so that's going to stay until we're done. It's doubtful we would reinvest in Logitech. Qualcomm is insanely underpriced. I don't understand how it is. Let's go to Yahoo. Show you the best on Yahoo. Qualcomm. All right, P ratio is 13. There's Qualcomm, and we compare it to Broadcom. And I wish they had never changed their name, but they did. Their symbol, Broadcom. save it. Look at this. These guys, this is 2 years, let's go 5 years. These guys generally move step by step together. They offer a very, very similar service, but all of a sudden right here, last October, Broadcom went nuts and Qualcomm has been flat. And nuts, I mean, this is up 100%. So let's say 227% higher since October. And these guys are flat. Their PE is 13. There's nothing wrong with this company. It is absolutely the pick. We had meant to make it a top trade, and it will be a top trade. And well, let's go ahead and follow through. Okay, I think it's fair that given that we're doing a webinar, why don't we make a trade? So, we were going to do a top trade alert for QCOM, which is trading at 13x versus $20x. Versus 20x for AVGO. Yeah, here's a good. As of today, which is July 19th, 2023, using whatever you know about recent earnings, sector earnings, and the macro environment, can you please compare AVGO and QCALM for their prospects going forward as an investment. You know, and again, in the interest of time, this will just give us a general idea of what's going on. Not necessarily accurate, but it's always a good starting point for something. Ooh, looks like it's doing a lot of work, huh? Wow. Oh, sorry, it looks like, what is this about? This is interesting. It's a complicated question, but he shouldn't have broken it. It was being very slow, isn't it? We had that the other day, though. We had the thing crashed. Well, I was going to say it was faster, but I can freaking do this on my own, guys. So we talked about Avgo, formerly known as Broadcom. So you see that the sales projected forward, and not very exciting growth for Broadcom. But the profits are exciting, so it indicates that they've invested a lot of money and that's now going to bear fruit, but not necessarily leading to more sales, just going to allow them to ramp up their production and do whatever. They have 27 billion in debt. They have 18 billion in profit. Qualcomm, 10 billion in profit and 10 billion in debt. So Broadcom had 18 billion in debt and less than, it's 27 billion in debt, 18 billion in profit. So they had more debt. They had 50% more debt, and proportionally the profit is similar here. Well, actually it's not. I'm sorry. They're making more money on the same amount of sales, interestingly. See, that's 36 billion, 39 billion, but notice there's more growth here. 33, 36, 39. They've got some steady growth going on. They're in a different part of the investing cycle, so it's going to take them a while to ramp up. But realistically, go back to Broadcom, see the same 33, 35, 38 is Broadcom. Practically the same company, right? But they're dropping a lot more to the bottom line than Qualcomm is. That's really the difference, and that's giving them double the valuation. But it's not fair because it's 20 times earnings, and Qualcomm is at 13 times earnings. Oops, I went the wrong way. Here's Qualcomm. So Qualcomm at 136 is making $10 billion, so it's 13 times earnings. Therefore, these guys are extremely underpriced. And even if you say they would meet in the middle, meeting in the middle is still well up for Qualcomm. So there's lots of ways to construct a great trade for Qualcomm. So let's see what Bing has figured out. Let's see if Bing can come up with anything. Look at this. Very strange. Oh, broken again. See, this is a problem with AI. Using whatever you know about recent the macro environment, can you please compare? I think there's too much pressure saying it that way. He can write 5 episodes of Seinfeld, but he can't compare 2 stocks. Boy, he's really having trouble today, huh? See, I mean, I can't use ChatGPT because ChatGPT. Look, what is going on here? Okay, both leading semiconductors operate in different segments of the industry. Opco is mainly focused on providing chips for wireless. Qualcomm is a supplier of mobile chipsets and modems and develops technologies 5G, artificial intelligence, and automotive Internet of Things. Both companies reported strong earnings, high demand, blah, blah, blah. According to Zacks, that's a good place to look. Wow, he's stuck already. According to Zacks, earnings per share grew by 13.8%. The company increased by, jeez. Please continue. What? Is he just stuck or what's going on? How messy. Look at that. Is this like a general problem right now that the chats are down? All right, we're gonna have to get to it later. Ugh. All right, well, let's just think. This is 20 years from now ago. Put that up after the bell. Okay. That's where we're leaving off. So definitely going to do a trade on Qualcomm though, because it's just stupidly underpriced compared to Broadcom. And it's not that Broadcom is overpriced. So realistically, I mean, certainly 15 plus X, 15 to 17X should be the right price. So all we have to do is make a fairly conservative spread and play that out. And if we look at what that would be, we got Qualcomm, QCOM. So Qualcomm's at 125. So if we sell the 100 puts for 750 or whatever it is, that's a safe. Obviously, it's safe because that's, you know, it's at 13 now. So if it drops 20%, that 20% would be, yeah, 20% would be for 25 bucks. If it drops 20% to 100, that's going to be back to like 10x. So unless they themselves screw up badly, it's highly doubtful that this is going to be a problem price. And then we can construct a hedge and we say, what do we say they're going to be worth? They're going to be worth, well, they're at 13, so they should be 15, which would be 10% to 17 would be 20%. So up to 20% more than they are now, which would be 125, let's say 150 would be where they top out. So now I got to start thinking in the ranges, how am I going to get my most premium? So the 150 100 spread is 39 and 12 is what? That's 27. The 120 100 spread is 2150 and 36 is like 15 bucks. All right, so we got $15 there for a $50 spread. That's not, no, sorry, the $25 spread. Or let's say the 120s are 24 and the 150s are 12. That's 12 bucks on a $30 spread. Now I like it. Okay, good. So there you go. So the spread's going to be the 120s, which are at the money, and they're going to be $24 minus the 50s, 150s that are $12. So obviously 12 minus 12. And then if we sell half as many of these $100 puts at 760, so that's going to be what? Minus half of 760 is 380. So it'll be 380. So it's going to be net 820 on the $30 spread. And that means we're going to have 20 whatever dollars of upside, which is not far from 300%. Wait, 20. Well, minus 30 divided by 8.2, 265%. So the upside potential at 150 is 265%. So then I want to look to see if we can do better. So let me look at the 140s. And the 140s are 1520 minus then the 110s, it's 2950. Well, minus 2950, and that's 1430. So the other one was 12, and these are 1330. Is it worth paying $230 to be $10 more in the money? Now, so you're paying $2.30 or $2,300 per 10. You're paying $2,300 to be $10,000 in the money more. That's kind of worth it. And you don't need to make 200%. I think I'd rather make a lower percentage. You're still going to end up being net because it's still taking off the same 380, right? So that would be, in this case, the way it works, plus 380. I hope I'm not losing you because I just did it backwards with the math. So you're going to pay $10.50 for the $30 spread. You still have almost a 200% upside. And now, though, your goal is only 140, which is only $15 away from where we are now. So 10% higher is going to put you in the money. That's kind of hard to turn down. So what are the 130s? The 130s are 1920, and the 100s are 36. So 36 minus 19 is 17. So now we're going to pay 17 minus 380, which is 1380. Then now the upside's only 100%. That doesn't make any sense. So for 100% upside, I don't see the point. For 200% upside, that's there, and it was only like 226 or whatever, 240 at best. But then we're out of the money. So I'd rather take the middle of the road there and be that much in the money. So that's what we're going to do for the Broadcom, not Broadcom, for Qualcomm. And that's going to be our official trade. I am not, are they going up today? They're going up today too. Oh well. Anyway, I'm not going to do it right now because unfortunately I have a 3 o'clock meeting. So that's what I'm heading off to. But that's going to be our trade for the day for sure. And like I said, though, the point of the portfolio review, which I guess is here. And like I said, we got the Qualcomm, got distracted. So here's SoFi. They're the, a new kind of bank, and they're doing very well right now, so that's good. And then Yeti was my retail pick. That was our trade of the year, and that's doing phenomenal. Yep, they're going to be right on track too. But they already made, I think I already mentioned they already made like 500%. So it's kind of they've done, as far as the trade of the year goes, they accomplished their goal. So yeah, see, they're up. Only up $3,000, but the thing is, we only had a $750 net. And that's why it was a trade of the year, because I said, look at what you can do with this thing. So yeah, our target, okay. So the net was $750. We're up 580% because we now have a net, and it's now net $5,100. We had a 500%, 580% increase, and all we were looking for was 300. So yeah, if that's what you're looking for is just to succeed in the trade of the year, shut it down, take the money, and be happy. So all you have to do is do every year. We've never missed. Every year, our trade of the year makes 300%. If you just do that once a year and make 300%, it adds up pretty quickly. You don't have to do any other trade. Just do the trade of the year every year. You're good. So the point of going through these portfolios is just to find the things that are working and find the things that are not working. So we have SunPower not working at the moment, but we like it, so still a bargain. CIM is working. Future Fuel working. Barclays working, barely. We just started, it's July 5th. Ford not working, still good for a new trade. I like Ford down here. They came back, they were at 1350, they're back to 14 already. GoPro, it's not really doing what we thought it would do, but we just got back into it. NYCB, we cashed this out actually as a $700 portfolio. This was working so well, we took the money. Doesn't seem like a lot. It's only up to $700 or whatever it was at the time, but that's that $700 was a $700 a month portfolio. Double our money, double our money on this particular investment. We take it off the table. There's good old SoFi again. There's a hedge. Here's Trox, specialty metals. Here's natural gas, and IVZ is also just started. So we'll see what they do. The point is what's working, what's not, what kind of plays are working, what kind of plays are not. And that's how we start to learn in this environment. In other words, we experiment to start out with. We do lots of different trades, lots of different styles, a variety of sectors that we play in. We keep a good variety of sectors, and we start figuring out what's working, what's not. It's like when you field a football team in high school, right? You got a bunch of new kids, throw them on the field, and you figure out which ones are strong and which ones are not, and which plays your team is able to execute and which ones are not. That's all it is. It's just, to some extent, there's experimentation. Of course, we're picking pretty damn good stocks, but the reason these portfolios get stronger and stronger as they get older is because we learn as we go along and we start leaning towards the things that work. Just like building a football team, okay? You've got to build it from scratch. You've got to work with the players. You've got to get everybody in the right position, and soon it becomes, and then when there's an opportunity, you see how your portfolio just jumps all over it and strikes. but it's all because we got to watch things and see what's happening. And then you go back to the watch list. And again, you say, well, that's working. This kind of company is working. So let's see what we have on the watch list. We've already looked through these inside of these are all strong companies with good valuations. That's what they're there for. Strong companies, good valuations that we think is going to work in the current market environment. Now it's now, these are from last November, or October really, because we started doing these in October and we narrowed it down so we can get to our trade of the year in November. So as of last October, this is what we expected to perform well in 2023. And when you look at these, most of them, of course, are performing well in 2023 because we're not stupid. We picked the right stocks. But Citibank's still laying around. Cheesecake Factory's still laying around. So if I see in my portfolios, if I see actual evidence that food retailers are working, like BurgerFi, if I see evidence that the big banks are working, like JP Morgan, I'll take another look at Citibank because it's still an opportunity. Caterpillar got away. I don't care anymore. Capital One Financial, is that working? I don't think so because of outstanding consumer credit debt worries me. CIM, we know that's working. Cleveland Cliffs, we don't have any metal companies. It's something that we need in our portfolio, so that's worth considering. And again, we just go through these things and figure out what works, what doesn't, what can we get, what can we do? That's how we're going to build these portfolios up, and that's what we're going to do. And again, we go through the portfolio, and obviously anything I make blue, anything where we're doing changes, wait, what was that? Oh, that one we closed. Like JPM, we closed JPM because it made too much money. We closed NYCB because it made too much money. Here you go. AT&T. Oh, that was nice too. We caught the rebound. So what we're going to do is buy back the short calls because they were up 41.9%. We got to wait till 2025 to collect the rest. And we're already up 41.9% in 2 months. Not 2 months. We only just put this trade on, frankly. And we're going to roll our 10-17 puts to 20 of the 15 puts because I think 15 is too low. And look, they're back at 14.50 now. Holy cow. That's a day later. Blah, blah, blah. So we got much more aggressive on the trade. With AT&T yesterday was down around 13.50, which was crazy. Yeah, 13.50. And there was so 13.50. I think that's kind of silly, even with the debt. If it was just AT&T, I would be more concerned. But when I looked, I pulled back, and we discussed it we discussed it already this week. And I said I'm kind of on the fence about it. But when I started thinking about it, I pulled back. And I look at the whole sector, and that's how I do my research. I start with the company, and then I look at the companies around it. Then I look at the sector, and I think about the macros. The copper thing, the copper cable thing, I think is manageable. It's a cleanup that has to happen over time, but it's not the amount of cash that these companies have and generate is not going to make it a big deal. And they'll pass along the cost. So I don't think that's going to be a big loss for them. And they have an excuse for passing along the cost. So there's that. So the overblown fears of the copper cable, not the copper cables, lead cables is a problem. I think that can get fixed. And then we've got, it's frankly an excuse to lay fiber, right? So it's really an excuse to get the government to approve them digging everything up and putting fiber in, which is what they wanted to do anyway. It's an approval issue mostly. So, and then also the fact that they're all in the same boat. All these telcos are in the same boat. Therefore, it's not a special disadvantage to AT&T in the sector. So why are we treating them like they're going to be so bad? I mean, all the telcos were down, but you look at it and say, well, they'll all be down for a while and they'll all get over it, just like everybody does when they have these issues. Even Exxon, which destroyed a huge piece of Alaska, and Shell, right, which destroyed the Gulf of Mexico. These are much worse things than having some lead cable in the ground. So anyway, so what do we do when it hits 13.50? You have to, again, value investing. I believe there is a certain value to AT&T. So at 13.50, I said, boom, we're going to just strip off the short part of this trade and just go bullish and see what kind of bounce we get. Already we're being rewarded. Anyway, like I said, I got 3 o'clock, so I got to go. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. I hope you all had a good time, and we will do this again next week.